guys are here.
Thank you for
I'm
having
so
us,
so happy.
Alan.
Yo, um, Amy Guan and Alex Lim. I I I really appreciate you guys in so many different ways.
Thanks.
You two are like some of the most mindful people I've met, and especially as a couple, I don't get the sense that you're like more mindful together or apart or whatever. I just feel like y'all are yourselves, and it's just a wonderful union
Oh,
of
that's
two
so
really
sweet.
kind, really like conscious, really just like thoughtful people, and that alone makes you very like valuable to in my eyes.
Aw,
You know what I mean? At the
Thanks.
very least.
thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you so much.
It's reassuring. I be in my head a lot, so.
Yeah,
Yo,
same.
I hella feel you, dude. You know when you came by and we did that track,
Yeah.
I like I like felt like mad simpatico with you. You know, just the way that you are really, and like your vibe, the way that we were kind of like working together. Just it was literally just like right here.
Yeah. Right here.
The way that we were working together and the way that you work, and again, I bring up the mindfulness because it's mad important to me, right? And I'm gonna ask you guys a little bit more about that. It just made me feel like, oh, I felt hella seen by you.
Oh, right on, man.
You know, it was dope.
Same. It was cool because like I'm not technically music. Like I don't know music on a technical level, so I was like, it's like, dun, 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 dun. It's like, okay, I got you. Let me.
So you're like bouncing off each other's
Yeah.
like vibe and energy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And young Patrick Aguilar was here too.
Yes.
He was actually in another
He's the
edition.
executive producing.
That's right.
I was producing, and he was producing, and I was just a eccentric person. Oh, it's gotta have fireworks.
And I was there, just like, okay, yeah, I'm the engineer. I get it done, yo. Yeah.
Love that.
So about the mindfulness that I was talking about, I came to your guys' studio and we were working on a promo for the shop.
Yes.
And just, I mean, even today, in the small things that you guys do, in the way that you work together, I was just standing over there, and Alex was just like automatically holding something for me. You know what I mean? And I know that's like kind of part of the teamwork of what you guys do when it comes to creating media, creating sort of like packages for people and stuff like that. But I get this immense feeling that it's just a part of you, a part of who you are, is just to lend a helping hand. And one of the things I wanted to ask is because process in artists, and both of you are profound artists to me. Um, it's so important, and when you strip everything away, you're just left with the process because, like, you know, everything's been done so many times these days. It's been done over and over again, and people are looking for different things or different vibes, or just to catch whatever, you know, the zeitgeist at a different angle. But process, I've found, is really at the core of all of that. It's the real meaning. No matter how many times you've done something again and again, the process is what kind of like drives you, and the process is the real core to what's going on behind the scenes. So I want to ask you guys, like, are there certain processes that you guys really love, or ones that you've felt you've really had to build up and are hella proud of?
Well, I think like first and foremost, operating as a team is kind of the mindset that Alex and I share whenever we dive into any creative project or even cleaning the house. I mean, it's like, okay, we're going to tag team this. This is what we're going to do. So we kind of have a process in place, like you said, Alan, prior to doing any type of, you know, event, creative endeavor, whatever it is. And we kind of break free from there. And I think that we, you know, debrief as well afterwards. So there's a lot of prep. We're known for being very prepared for a lot of things. And I think, yeah. I mean, Alex is a very prepared person. And better safe than sorry is often what we say. Alex, I don't know if you want to add something to that.
Yeah, I think my process is really trauma informed, and not like traumatic experience, but like, damn, I don't want that to happen again. Like, you know, I brought an XLR cable here. I know last time we were filming there, it's like, oh, I gotta have XLR to 1/4. So a lot of it's prepared, and I really think about things in terms of a penalty. It's just like I'd rather have the weight penalty of having one extra cable than not, and then the pain of like, damn, I wish I brought the cable. So my process is really informed by that, and just reducing as much stress as possible. I think that's our process, and also defining, like, just over communicating roles. So like when we did your shoot, for example, it's like, Amy, like, I'm gonna be focusing on the technicality of everything. You're producing and you're styling this. Like, you have the vision. Like, I'll just make sure it's executed, and like my end of the vision as far as like lighting and like maybe like composition is there, but for the most part, like how it should look and how it should feel will be on your part, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really like that. Like, I'm gonna ask you guys. Wait, are you also the risk adverse type? Like, are you carrot or stick?
I think maybe a little in between both. I think maybe I am more risk adverse by default, but I think what I have found is there is like a beauty in chaos, and I like to embrace that from time to time, not all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I find myself kind of jumping off the cliff sometimes, not knowing what's on the other end and what's going to happen. And so I think we complement each other so well in that way, because Alex is very risk averse, very prepared. And so sometimes, like, no, Amy, you really need to bring a jacket. Like, you were born and raised in San Francisco and you still don't wear a jacket outside. Like, what is wrong with you? And I am the type of person to maybe not learn my lesson the first time. So I think like we complement each other. So I think in a lot of instances I am risk averse, but I'm not afraid to jump off the cliff.
See. That's interesting. So not carrot, not stick, but like steric. The two put
I guess
together.
so. Yeah.
Yeah. I caught an interview. I'm also very stick. So, but I used to be very carrot. So my mom. So do you know what I mean by carrot and stick?
I'm not too familiar.
Okay.
with
I'm
that.
glad I asked then. So it's like a very old, outdated analogy used for raising children, where it's like, okay, do you motivate your child by offering them a prize, or do you motivate your child by saying, like, if you don't do this, stick, right? So this like I said, very outdated, anachronistic at this point.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm stick, but I used to be hella carrot, and I have always been the type to not learn my lesson that well the first time, just because I'm just like, I don't know. I used to be more in the very, very only in the present. And so what that does is it makes it so that you can get carried away pretty easily if you're not thinking about the future and not also like worried about stuff that you've experienced from the past. So, but now I'm old enough, and now I'm like less carrot and now more stick. So, but like I was saying, I ran into an interview by Chuck Palahniuk, or with Chuck Palahniuk. And he's the guy who wrote like Fight Club,
Okay.
and like all of those stories. And he kind of has a penchant for like really grim, really real, gritty stories, and just like stories that make you feel uncomfortable, but have an undeniable human quality to them. And his process, like, of getting into like writing a book and like really letting all that vitriol go, is he started building a cathedral from large stones by hand, and he's the only one that's allowed to work on it. So he's up there on this cliff carrying large stones.
Masochistic.
Exactly, right? So you can kind of see like where his work
I could see that in
comes
his
from.
work too. Yeah.
I think so too.
Very, yeah.
I think so. And so when I say process, I'm thinking about stuff like that, where it's like, oh, it's like more of the like bigger pool of people, like, oh, like, what's your artist process, and like how do you get yourself inspired and into flow and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And the processes that you have on the everyday really speak a lot. right?
Yeah.
So do you guys have like a process like that, or is it more of just like a grand scheme, like, all right, I'm gonna do this thing every single time, and it works for me, and it's efficient, and we kind of grinded it to this point, or is it, or are there other angles that you come at, like, oh, I'm gonna take a long walk and, like, go to Land's End and like sit by the beach type of stuff?
I think my process is kind of intangible, like the milestones or markers, if you will. It's like whatever I'm doing, like I want to feel a little nervous before I do it. Like I had a shoot this week, and then like I stayed up kind of late, and I was just like watching movies. Like, okay, like what are the possibilities? What can I possibly do? And it was like a really simple shoot, but I was like, I I I want to be nervous going into it to just remind myself that I care sometimes, and like maybe that's a little sticky in terms of the carrot and stick kind of analogy that you mentioned, but it's interesting. I'm motivated by stick, but I think my carrot would be like the gratification of knowing I was prepared and like being able to relax and knowing I did all I could, because like I'm not just like constantly critiquing like, okay, I was like adequately prepared for that. So there is like a point of satisfaction for sure.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. And I think for me, I know that I do like routine in a lot of ways, but I know that when I'm not challenging myself and I'm not nervous, that I'm probably stuck in the same cycles that I've just been in over and over. And I think that is an indicator for me, like, hey, I think you need to switch it up, Amy, and challenge yourself, because I think that's where growth happens for me personally as an artist. And like with Motocot, it was a very like all in type situation. I have no idea what I'm doing, but this is where growth is going to happen, and so it's been really nice like seeing my partner exemplify that as well, because it makes me feel safe to know like, hey, like if some shit hits the fan, like I know that like I have a trusting partner on the other end that will meet me and understand like where I'm coming from. If I am nervous, if I'm excited, he's there to meet me, Yeah. So for me, it's like, a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. And especially since, you guys are here together. And,
Yeah.
the shop is Jen and I. So there's a
No,
lot of,
I love it.
there's a lot of relationship involved. And I
Yes.
think that, like, when you have a working relationship, it is both the most gratifying and the hardest thing to bring upon a relationship, because it's like you could also just be working separately in different places and never like have to really know what each other does and what you kind of experience at work and all that stuff. But when you go through it together, it must work.
Yes.
Like if it doesn't work, it doesn't work,
Yeah.
right? It
No.
must work.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you must be, elastic in some way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Like I think what makes it work, there's a lot of like soft skills. We're actually talking about this like prior to came here. It's like, like it's not just like, oh, I'm like showing up to your pop-up helping you put this stuff up. Oh, I'm helping you get fabric. Like a lot of the work that goes into like dynamics like this is a lot of like soft things in terms of like I'll have dinner with you at the studio, or she'll help me load my car with camera equipment at 6 a.m. So like there's a lot of soft things that like kind of go unnoticed, and they're less glamorous aspects of support, So like I think that's really important and key
Yeah.
to making something work.
And I feel like very invested in Alex's life. Like when he succeeds, I succeed.
Yeah.
And it's just cool to see your partner like kind of shine in that way. And like I don't need to be in the forefront of that. When it's his time, it's his time. And like whatever I can do to make that possible, I do if I can, and I think that's where like communication comes in.
Yeah.
And I've seen you and Jen, you guys communicate so well.
Yeah, you think so?
Yes, I do. Yeah. I mean, like, look we're here at like speaking together, and like Jen isn't here physically, but like I feel her presence, and she's, she helped coordinate some of this stuff. So it's like it takes a team,
Yeah.
and so I feel that from the two of you. And for Alex, like just knowing that, he has breakfast in the morning, is enough for me. Like, I will get up early to make him breakfast because then he has the energy to execute during the day when I am not with him.
Yeah.
You know, and like he takes care of me in that way. And I am always grateful for that, you know.
That's that's dope to hear.
Yeah.
Just, hearing it out loud from you too, right? It means a lot to me. I think, yeah, you guys are right about the soft skills and the less glamorous stuff.
Yes.
But that is what encapsulates quite a lot of the support that goes on. Being there for each other emotionally, and being there for each other just like with hands, right? Making sure that each person feels seen and not necessarily just being like, hey, I see you today. You know what I mean? Just in your actions and the way that you speak with each other. I agree. And Jen, definitely immense, right? The
Yes.
amount of work that she can do is immense. Yes. And I'm over here just trying to I'm over here doing like push-ups. Like, all right, I'm gonna be lifting some heavier boxes. I'm gonna help you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I'm that for her.
Yeah.
But yeah, like listening to how couples work together is one of the most gratifying things I can think of, because that's humanity, right? It's like love, and it's not just that, it's cooperation. So, I mean, besides, okay, so we've talked about, actually, I want to check the chat really quick, because one of the flaws of this setup is I can't even see what people are saying. What's on the left side?
On the left side. Oh.
Yeah, that one. Let's see. That's Jordan. Who's at the top there? Is that Amp? No.
There's Jen.
Oh, it's Jen. Yeah, so you said, it's almost like I can feel her presence. She was
What's up, Jen?
Yo.
Hey,
She's running
Jordan.
errands.
You
Okay.
gotta someone to refill my soda stream.
Yeah. Exactly. I think that's what she's
Muscles
doing.
are much needed.
You seen for sure.
Yo, let's go.
You know, and that like kind of speaks to like just relying and like kind of leaning in onto each other's strengths too. You know, I cannot physically lift certain things. I lean on Alex for some of those things. That's not always the case, but just acknowledging like where our assets are and just how can we utilize those as a team.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I was just talking about this with Dom from Macrowaves.
Uh-huh.
It's like, relationships not 50-50. It's not equal. It's equitable.
That's so true, actually.
equitable.
And you can't think of it as equal, because then you start
Tallying.
It's like that Joy Luck
Tit for
Club
tat.
story.
No, it doesn't work.
No,
Yeah.
we were gonna show Joy Luck Club at the shop, but it's like too sad.
Yeah.
It's
You know what I mean?
pretty dark.
It's pretty dark, yeah. Especially, anyways, we ended up going with Better Luck Tomorrow, slightly less dark.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty dark too.
It's pretty dark, but it doesn't hit that same heartstring.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah. But yeah. So you two, my God. So you two, have you guys ever told your story to us? How'd you guys meet?
You're much better.
No, you're good.
No, you're a lot better. I'll
Chime
ad-lib.
in.
Yeah, I'll chime in.
Okay. So Alex and I actually met in high school.
Dope.
And Alex's cousin Chris and I were classmates, and I just got a random call one night, and it was from Chris, and he said, "Hey, my cousin wants to take you out to boat dance."
Referral. No,
Yeah.
not boat dance.
Oh.
Just wanted to meet you up. So.
Oh. See,
So like,
so Alex
okay,
has to tell
okay,
the story.
There we go.
Because that part I've
So I was
not.
like, hey, who's that girl? And then I had my cousin hit up Amy. He's like, hey, he wants to meet you. And then finally came. And then like, at the time I was really into scratching. So like, Amy's friends were also DJs in high school. So we all go to my house and we'd all like scratch. And then, just like 8 people in this tiny San Francisco bedroom. And then little by little, everyone leaves. And then eventually I had like some time alone with Amy and I got to know her. And then we started dating in high school for like a little bit, but felt like really long in high school because, your time's compressed.
I think it was like 3 months,
It's pretty long in high school.
which is an eternity in
Yeah.
high
I
school.
think
Yeah.
it was like my longest in high school.
In high school.
In,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
in high school.
And then, we dated for 3 months and then we broke up and didn't speak for 13 years.
Like at all.
Damn.
We even had class like in college together, didn't acknowledge each other. or maybe more so I didn't.
Yeah. I tried to reach out to Alex a few times, but I think, there was very clear boundaries there. And so after 13 years of not speaking, you know, I, I slid into Alex's DMs. Yes.
You did?
I did.
Oh.
It's crazy though, because okay, Alex was, I don't know, I guess we friended each other or added each other on Instagram, and he was scratching on live or something. And he was making this face while he was scratching that was so reminiscent of high school. And I just
It's not a flattering face.
It's
by
not
the
a
way.
flattering face, but it was very familiar. And so I responded to it. And I think that's where the conversation started. So,
Yo.
13 years not talking,
That's funny.
Yeah.
but here we are.
Yeah. I think Jen and I was similar, but we started in college.
Oh.
Because I met her in college. And
Where'd
we
y'all
did-
go to college?
State. Well, we both went to San Jose State, and then she went to FITM, and then
Okay.
I
Oh,
went
okay.
to Conservatory of Music in San Francisco, and then we did our artist thing, our artist schooling, and then I slid. But it's funny because along the way I was still kind of checking in with her. So she would invite me to stuff, or I would see what she's doing, and then I would see that either she's with somebody else or interested in somebody else, and then I'd leave. No cap. Yeah.
Yeah.
No cap. Literally, I would go, oh, I'll see you next time.
Amy is keeping pretty good tabs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Alex is a very special person
Yeah.
and very memorable,
Yeah.
And although it was just 3 months, it was a pretty memorable 3 months, and just so talented. I remember he was freestyling back in the day, and I would go see him when he was freestyling. It was cool.
Yo, and this man too. He somehow you do it in such a way where it's like nothing.
For real.
Yeah. So that
Look, he's getting shy right
you've
now.
always been a cool cat, man.
Right
it's,
on.
It's in the movements, you know what I mean? It's in the fluidity. It's in
It's in the knees.
Yeah. It's all in the it's all in the
I
joints.
heard it's in the in the knees. But Amy definitely was she definitely was the catalyst in that exchange, I will say. If you're curious about the DM, it was these ones, the
It was
eyes,
the eye
the eyes.
emoji.
I was peeing in a
know.
movie, and then
Yeah.
she's like, "Come on, fool, you don't get it." And I still didn't get it. We went on a date. I didn't even know it was a date.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, I don't know what that was. We actually call it the first non-date. So we kind of celebrate our rekindling or our reuniting on
Yeah.
that first non-date.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. So if you guys were to have, because I really revere, okay, let me just make this clear. There is no beautiful product without hardship behind it. And I'm not really about to dig into a lot of that, but if there is something that you can tell people, when they're having not necessarily a rough time with relationship, but just something to what do you think is your glue, the strongest polymer between you?
I think for me, I think our strong suit is being okay with being soft and vulnerable with each other, because there's nothing to prove to one another. And so I think whenever there is an argument, it's okay, I was wrong. And that is hard to say. I am wrong. I still have a hard time sometimes saying I'm wrong. This morning.
Like this morning.
This morning, yeah. And I had assumed that Alex was gonna say something, and I kind of corrected him, and he was like, "Hey, that's actually not what I was gonna say," and just being I wasn't defensive. I was like, "Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry," And I think just seeing each other in a vulnerable state too, and being able to figuratively hold each other has made, I think, our relationship extremely strong. So I think for me, vulnerability has been key.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's being aware of instincts and how certain instincts don't necessarily serve you. So maybe Amy says something and kind of gets under my skin, and typically, you know, if it was tit for tat, like I owe you one for that. I don't think I'll ever come to collect what is necessarily owed, and I think that's like being pretty aware of your instincts has been working for me, and like been serving, and like, you know, at the end of the day, I'm always satisfied with what I didn't do, you know, especially when I'm upset, you know. I get upset with you sometimes,
Yeah.
and like,
Yeah. Fair.
what I
Does
don't
you?
do is typically serves me. Yeah.
Yeah.
So hearing you say that kind of resonates with me a little bit because I'm very tit for tat at instinct level, right? It's like I'm the type to push back. I'm the type to be ready to fight because I have been historically a big pushover, right? You know, the whole Asian thing coming from the people pleasing, you know, tendencies and family and culture and stuff like that. And then like layer that with like Taoism and Buddhism and like I am nothing, right? I'm actually nothing. Doesn't help. So are you saying that at your core you're tit for tat too, but then you've learned to not tap into that?
Yes, at my core, I am tit for tat, or at the very least, like if it's not like my essence, I'm aware of the tally, so to say,
Right.
you know, and like it's not necessarily something I always act on, but I am aware of. You know, it's like, hey, that was like a point against me, you know, or like it's perceived to be a point against me,
Right.
more so. This might
Yeah.
be news to you.
Yeah, it is actually news to me. But
I always say like I owe you one.
yeah,
but
but that's what we joke though.
Yeah.
But I think like it that is very human, right?
Absolutely.
To experience that in that way. I mean, I am also tit for tat, but I think like in the moment I am tit for tat, and then I kind of step back and I'm like, wait, this is not going to help us in any way, you know? And so let's not live in this space, in this energy, because it's just going to take us further away from each other than bringing us closer. And yeah, we've had many talks about like, you know, it's not really about like who's going to do the dishes more, you know, more this week, or, you know, who's responsible for doing X, Y, and Z. I think like those norms that society sets on like men and women or whoever it is in the household, like we don't live by those. And I think like the tit for tat thing is like, it's also shown too in the way that we manage, just like the way that we live with each other.
I will also say like on my part, and like you kind of do it now too, but more so like what I need is like I actually over communicate. It's like I don't want something to ruminate. Like, okay, like yesterday I cleaned the whole house. Like I'm gonna let you know I cleaned the whole house. I'm not resenting it. I'm just letting you know that
Yes.
I want it to be known that I cleaned the whole house and I wanted to do this for us. And like I think you're also maybe initially is like I do that too, and like now you're just like thank you, baby. Like you'll just say like that because that's what I need, and I'm aware of my needs, and like I want to still do that, but not resent doing that. You know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That awareness is definitely key because otherwise you just kind of flying around reacting and that just doesn't help anybody. Right.
Yeah, like are we on the same page?
Right.
You know, is
Yeah.
it's
That
always on
assumption
my
gets dangerous.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's like
100%.
so what? We all clean the house.
and then it's on, right?
I know, then it's tit for tat, you know?
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I found there are certain things that send me into a nosedive into what I call my negative circuitry. So like I've noticed that I can be two people. Like when I'm like free loving, no friction, life is good, everything's good. But when everything's bad, everything's
It's
bad,
bad,
right?
yeah.
And your mind is just stuck into like this kind of survival mode.
For
And
sure.
there are
Yeah.
certain things that flip that switch, right? The whole tit for tat thing, right? If it goes too far, you're just stuck for a while. Have you guys found that happens to you? And is there like something that you do to like kick yourself out of that? Instead, you said you step back,
I do.
right?
I mean, I find myself in that space a little more often than probably I would want to. And my mind races all the time. I'm overthinking things all the time. And I think because Alex is very aware of that part of me, he can sense when I'm in that space. And sometimes even like a gentle tap kind of pulls me back into reality. Not that like what I'm feeling is not reality, because it's still very true and felt. But I think sometimes, I do lean on Alex to like be aware of what I am feeling. But also it is my responsibility to also communicate that because like he cannot read my mind, you know? So yeah, sometimes I have to remember that like, if I keep going down this route where I'm just going to let this eat me up, it's not going to be good for anyone. Yeah.
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 Yeah, I'm pretty. I am aware of it, and like in therapy, there's like 3 levels of being. So there's like one where like you're just kind of you're present, you're able to take things in and like analyze, and then like the level below that is like reactive, like you're in fight or flight, and then below that is like you're just kind of like super recessed and like kind of detached. And like yeah, I definitely have those moments where like I'm on edge. I'm naturally an anxious person, and I am aware of that. And like for me it's like I know I have to walk the dog, as I tell Amy. Like I just have to play outside or something.
Yeah.
So that definitely helps. And when I'm not doing that, it's like really apparent. And Amy's aware of it. She's like, well, you haven't exercised in a while, so she also helps me keep aware of that. Because when I'm busy, sometimes I'll forget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, exercise is immense for me. If I don't get on my bike, because like Jordan recently lent me his stationary bike, and I've been on that thing like every day for like an hour, and it just makes my life better. Like just getting that out physically makes me calm for the rest of the day and less susceptible. Speaking of the awareness and the levels and stuff like that, I tend to think on terms of like, okay, we're both very slammed right now, and we have been for a long time. What can we do to just alleviate that, relax? What can I say? How can I make food, or like help more, be like more on about helping her with things, right? And I think those things eventually turn into something that's like a really joyous thing, because then you start loving the journey, and you start loving the process. Because I think a lot of people are stuck with the whole like, oh, if I do this and this and this and this, then this is gonna be great.
Right.
And if it isn't like up to par, then it's like, oh well, why did I do all this then?
Right.
Right?
Right.
But instead, it's really about what you did and how well you did it, and like what it meant to you.
Yeah. For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. So that process.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, I think we also use like opportunities, like Amy mentioned debriefs previously, but like I think the goal with everything is like I try to see something to learn in every gig, specifically pertaining to photo and videos. Like, okay, this is a simple thing, but what can we learn here today? Or like, what can we exercise that we learned in something previously? Like, I'm always looking towards that. Like, yeah.
I think you two would make like really amazing teachers.
Whoa.
Teachers, coaches, mentors, something like that, because y'all have such a patience, and you're really well thought out in what you do. So it would be a little bit easier for you to explain your process, a little bit easier for you to explain why you're doing things and where it comes from. And I think all of those things make amazing teachers. And this
Wow.
world really needs good teachers. Yeah. So I don't know if I
Thank
could
you.
convince you guys to do something like that in the future, but y'all were kind of made for it, you know. But yeah, let me ask you guys about like all the stuff that's going on now during your lives. I've seen a lot of activation going on within your realm, right? You guys are doing a lot, and so how do you guys feel about that?
It's a lot. And this whole world of tapping into play and art is so new to me. I mean, I was like busting my ass in a 9 to 5, even more than that, in like tech for 7 years. And so it was pretty awesome to see Alex and friends, kind of dive into their love for whatever their craft art is, because it really made me feel like this is very possible, of course with hard work and dedication and community, but I think, yeah, for me it's right now it's very busy, and it's a lot of stretching of self, and like me starting Motocot has been a very like intense journey. I mean, my parents even they hoped that this was going to be a part-time thing, but sorry, mom, sorry, dad, it's not. It's going to be full-time for a long time.
Yo, all the Asians feel exactly what you're saying,
Yeah.
right? That's
Yeah.
for me. That just felt like a normal thing for a parent to say.
Yeah.
Even when I wanted to start music at 7, my
Wow.
mom was like, "Are you sure you don't want to be a lawyer or a doctor?" And I was like, "No, I want to play the violin." She's like, "Okay."
That's cool though that they ended up saying, okay,
She
let's
kind
do
of
that.
had to because she's a piano teacher, so I didn't have a chance, honestly. But please go on. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like right now, this period of my life is just kind of stretching and just flexing more so. Muscles that I never actually was able to stretch and flex. So for me, that's kind of like my word for right now, just like being able to just be agile and just kind of go with the flow and not expect too much from this, but
Yes.
just experience it,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess where I'm at, there's quite a few plates spinning, but not in a bad way. I think I'm at a point where like I do have to say no to certain things, and like I mentioned in what I just previously said was, if there's nothing for me to learn, um, I try not to take it, because I think that's kind of a disservice. I'm not gonna bring the energy that maybe that person is hoping I would bring to something, and also I just the sheer number of hours. Like I do work full time now, but also doing music, also doing projects on the side, and occasionally doing stuff with Amy. But as far as where I'm at, I'm pretty pleased. I was actually working in education prior to this,
Let's go.
and I just took a leap when there wasn't many examples to kind of take from in like 2017. So I'm pretty pleased with where it is, and like I tell people, like I kind of oversimplify it, but try to give it in a digestible tidbit. It's like what Amy did, and like what many people are doing right now is like leap no plan where my feet might land. Like that's
Hey.
that's
It's all
like
tea, baby.
it's some advice I try to give, and like I was just thinking about that statement, and like I think the misconception is that there is no plan with the leap, and like that's why that line is a little bit oversimplified. It's like just because you're leaping doesn't mean you didn't look over the cliff first. Like you took the time to analyze your work, and then you took the leap, and like a fall doesn't mean it's uncalculated,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you can take a hit on purpose to avoid greater damage,
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
right? And to
Definitely.
put yourself in a better position,
Yes.
right? I like to use fight analogies with you because
Yes.
I know you.
As you're actually safer closer to the danger than, than at the
Yeah.
end of it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
Talk about it a lot.
Yeah, we do. We talk about that.
Yeah.
Mm.
That's actually hella wise though, if you really think about that, right? The calculated risks in this world are really a close analogy to being an entrepreneur, right? And so the risks that you are taking and the risks that you aren't taking really mean a lot, and says a lot about what you want to do. I think that like these days, the entrepreneurial pursuit is like what humanity kind of needs.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because we like as a human race, it's weird. We want all this comfort, but
Stability.
and stability. We need safety, all this stuff, but like that can lead down a very dangerous road towards being like full Wally. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Oh yeah, definitely.
And what we really need to thrive, which is kind of weird, is we need pain, we need adversity, and we need challenges. We like that's the core of what you're talking about. Like if I can't learn anything from it, then it's like I'm stagnating almost,
Yes, definitely.
right?
Well, it's interesting also, as you mentioned, like, oh, you're doing the 9 to 5. I think like a lot of that's getting turned on its head right now. Your previous job, it was like the golden egg at the time, and like I think we're seeing like, no, like that's that old way of thinking, and like the old kind of markers of comfort are kind of really being challenged right now in this economic like climate, and just with the way things are. And I think that people are being more receptive to being an entrepreneur at this moment, and seeing the value in that. And yes, like as a people, as a country, as Asian Americans, like it's very important. One, for representation, and two, out of necessity. Like we need to own our own shit. Like we were just talking to you before that. We build up so many other machines, and like we get so caught up in that we actually have no equity in the landscape as a result. And I think people are really seeing the value there.
Yeah. And I think, starting Motocot, it's been really interesting because everything that I'm doing is towards myself and my future family. And I'm not like working for someone else and like burning the midnight oil for another person who doesn't really care too much about my well-being. And so that has been very eye-opening, and realizing like, hey, you can actually make a living doing what you love. I mean, it's hard. It's not easy, but you can totally do it.
It's not supposed to be easy.
It's not supposed to be easy.
And if it was easy, we would eventually take it for granted.
Right.
Right?
We'd all be doing it.
And we'd all be doing it. Everybody and their mom will be doing it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that really what you guys said about that really resonates with me. Thinking about how our ancestors came to America and became entrepreneurs, and if you look back, there's the whole like donut craze,
Yeah.
and like how, right?
Yes,
Mhm.
definitely.
How
Yeah,
Cambodian
Donut King.
families came through and just like hit it big. That's enterprise right there after a while.
It's full circle. It's interesting you mentioned that because, like, okay, the first wave entrepreneurial. No, buy into
have to
these
conform into
structures.
this,
Buy into
yeah.
the structures that are built already, and then like now it's full circle. Like, no, you got to do your shit on your own. I understand why you're doing it on your own at the very least.
Yeah.
I definitely would sense that tone from your parents. Like, I get it. Sometimes I'm like, you should tell them, like, see what happened.
My parents were not very strict, which is nice. I'm very thankful for that, because my mom and my grandmother actually had this saying that they would always say to each other when my mom was growing up is, "Nevuvin," like you would become what you're going to become anyway. And so there is no point in trying to conform your children into what you think they should be. And I think my mom, thank you, Mom, for kind of showing us what that looks like. And so, yeah, I think like now they really see like, oh, wow, this can really be something. And they help me at the shop. Like they help me at the studio. It's cool. I think I've got their buy-in, know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool.
I mean, just look at the quality of your work, though. It's like undeniable, right?
Thank
if they
you.
hold this product in their hand, they're going to know.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like on the other end of the spectrum, but I'm always ready. Like, shit's gonna hit the fan, and like I'm okay if it hits the fan. Like whether it's monetarily or like just always. Like I'm not letting my worth be tied to any one thing, and not to say that my energy's nebulous and all over the place, but I like to just add value where I can add value, like genuinely, and just trying to build on that so that I know what I'm worth at a given moment. Like, oh, I don't have my full-time job. Well, I know how to do this at a certain level. I know I can lean on that, and like I enjoy doing that, and like I bought into that and built upon that.
Those words are so good to hear. They're words of strength and words of like ownership of who you are. And like I feel that in both of you. So like my next question will be, when did y'all feel like you really could own who you are and pull that nebula in, right? With the gravity of your own dark star, or whatever you want to say, your own sun.
I think a moment for me was like, I started freelancing in 2017. First year, terrible. Maybe sub $20,000 a year. Then the next year, it was like 40,000. And not to put a marker on it, but it's just more so on like, I was using kind of monetary at like where it is.
But there's visible progress.
There's
Yeah,
visible
absolutely.
progress,
Right.
like which I'll get back to in a bit, like visual, like looking at my archives too of my work. And then the next year, right before the pandemic, it was like 70 or 80, and that was more than I was making at a full-time job. I was like, oh, I get it. Like you can actually do this.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a marker. Like, okay, like I'm committed to doing something, and I'm learning my worth also, and that I don't have to necessarily exchange time for money in the way that I was. And that was like a big learning lesson. And like shout out to Mowgli, who really taught me that, because he really taught me like you should be charging like this much, and really like knowing my worth as a person and not being bashful about asking my rate, you know. So that was a big marker. And like it's kind of it's interesting. Amy's in this space now too, in that like the way the American consumer, there's a paradigm in that you don't, like for a lawyer, you don't want a cheap lawyer.
No. Perceived value, right?
Yeah, it's like
Right.
if I'm paying a lot for a lawyer, I think I'm getting a good value, and like kind of like adopting that into the way we offer our goods or our services as entrepreneurs. Like I kind of adopted that mindset. It's like, you know, you're paying for this, so you're gonna kind of presume that you're getting this, you know. And not that I'm hustling anybody, you know. I'm busting my ass still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That kind of hustle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Feel that. There's a time, sorry. There is a time that I can remember specifically about what you're talking about like what's your worth? Where I was working for like I was working 2 violin studios and then my own. And even and my own was literally just referrals I got from my mom, right? From her studio. And so she in a way kind of set my first rate, which gave me a little bit of knowledge. And then the studio started trusting me to collect their checks. So that's when I really started to see like, oh, they're pulling like 60% of my wage. So in essence, this is how much I'm worth because I'm doing the teaching.
The client knows that number. They're not aware of the splits.
Exactly. They only know the number, and then they see me. And it's not even the person who owns the place, right? They're not doing the teaching at this point. I'm sure they've done their work and all that. But at that point, I'm like, literally can visually see, like you were talking about visually, I can see how much this is worth. So actually go back to my studio. Okay. And then I could judge myself versus the quality of what they had and bring myself up to that quality and then go beyond. And that's where I found my dollar value.
Your moment, huh?
Yeah, my moment. That was
Yeah.
my moment. Yeah.
I think my moment is very recent, in that just my experience with starting Motokat has been not like the bags that I make aren't necessarily in response to like what people need. Like, for example, when I was working in tech, it was like I was working for someone, and it's like they were telling me what they needed and I was delivering. So I was a server in that way, a giver in that way, right? But I think with Motokat, it's been so fun to tap into play and like this is what I think a good bag is, you know, and like me being able to put that out and having other people respond really well to it, I think has been several moments of those moments for me. Where it's like, wait, I think, you know, people actually like what I think is cool. And that is cool, you know, because I'm like fairly shy, you know, and like I didn't really see myself as an artist previous. And I think now that I can share my art and have my art be very appreciated by people who don't even know me, they're not my family, they're not my friends. You know, I think those are the moments where I'm like, whoa, I think like I'm doing it right, you know? Yeah, so those have been my moments.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Jen was just she tells me the same thing every single time she puts out her newsletter.
Yes.
Right?
I love those newsletters.
Which
I read every single one of them.
Yeah, I love them too.
Yeah.
And I was just telling her about it. I'm like, what's not to like, right? There's literally no bullshit at all in this newsletter. It's fun. It's light. It's like, it's you.
It's so Jen, yes.
It's so you. Because before she would be like, hey, could you like help me edit this? Could you make sure this sounds good? And all, like off the bat, I'm like, the reason why people like this is because it's you. So I would be doing you a disservice if I changed the style of it, the tone, or anything like that, if I suggested any of that stuff. And I think very early on it was like, oh, well, like fix my grammar mistakes or whatever. But that's you too.
Man, that is such a great partnership.
I was gonna say
Like that
yeah.
is a moment that like I love to hear, and I admire that because I think, you know, oftentimes we're always trying to like be better or be someone else, but to have a partner who really embraces who you are and just lets you be who you are and not change you is very special and very unique, I think. And
Will
I think
also remind you of the worth of of you, you know, and not like you as a societal person, but your taste, like,
Yeah.
you know, like how you present things like that. That's really important. And like, you know, I try to do that for you too, in terms of like, nah, like this is your style, this is your take on it. It's not that, like this is you. Like when it comes to design and stuff.
Yeah.
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 And I think that's like, it's so valuable. Like, I was just asking you guys about like, oh, what can bring you out of that negative thinking circuitry, but what allows that? What is the oil, the lubricant to that is the trust that you build and the way that you guys can see each other, right? You have to trust the words of the other person in order for that all that to work. And so I think seeing worth in other people is such a human thing, but it's so necessary between all of us who care about each other. Otherwise, we kind of just go about our day and we just like all we know is what we see.
Right.
Positive feedback loops. Like your
Yeah.
confidence meeting my belief in you kind of just
Yeah, we just feed off of each other in
just
that way.
kind of
Yeah.
Yes.
accumulates and compounds.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
agreed. And I think that is something that we kind of like intrinsically do. It just feels good. Right? I see you struggling. I want you to feel good. I want you to have more fuel. So I'm going to try to start that loop and try to like meet you where you are. So I appreciate you guys for shouting that out, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, it helps when someone's actually dope too, because like,
Yeah.
if you weren't good, that'd be really challenging. I'm not gonna lie, but you're
Right?
good.
Literally, you wouldn't lie. Or would you?
I wouldn't lie.
I think there would be a balance.
I would
right?
I would steer you.
Right. Encourage.
Not steer you, like I don't have control or like any like input on it like that, but I would give you some feedback. Yeah.
I would welcome that.
Yeah.
Yo, and I feel that. Yeah, because I think that in terms of like upbringing, I'm a lot more closer to you. Although you didn't even talk about your upbringing.
Oh, I guess it didn't.
Yeah, you didn't. I just assumed it was opposite because you're very risk averse. And because you have sort of a different philosophy about like how you approach things.
Yeah.
Right. So I just kind of like I reverse engineered a little bit.
Yeah.
But correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know nothing about your upbringing actually.
I think Amy and I grew up pretty similar in that like my parents weren't very not strict, but they didn't have any expectations as to what I would do, but they did like security. Like when I was freelancing, I was like, why don't you just get like a full-time job at the time that I was freelancing? But there was never any expectation like be a doctor, be a lawyer, be a nurse, or whatever it might be. So there wasn't much expectation there, fortunately. But yeah, it's similar in that regard, I would say, if I had to summarize it. Yeah, my parents did like the arts growing up, so that like definitely helped. And yeah, they take me to museums and whatnot, so like I'm really grateful for that. And yeah,
That's dope.
Yeah, I find like Alex's parents very honest and very like supportive, you know, and just Alex had a performance at 826 Valencia last August for his birthday, and his mom showed up and was in the front row like, that's my son, you know, and it's just seeing that is so special, you know, and she's so proud of Alex. And same with your dad too. Your dad is like such an honest man, you know, and I think like that is very like, I think that Alex's, you know, honesty and just like support of his own community too is from his parents, like from what I see, you know. It's really cool to see.
yeah, definitely. Like especially when it comes to your business, like I learned a lot of ideals regarding local businesses. Like if I can give it to this person, I'm gonna give it to this person, like in terms of my support and like put your dollars where it matters, you know.
Yeah.
I think so when it comes to it, especially in this society, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel that. I know the similarity between Jen and I's parents is they're very giving people, right? Very community based and very like. So I would say, the funny thing is because her dad was like the mayor of where they were in Daly
Oh.
City. He's like the mayor of Daly City. He's like teaching all the kids on the block how to drive, you know, like known by all the chefs of all the restaurants and all that stuff like that. And it's funny because I would like to say that my dad's like that, but I have no real idea. My dad passed when I was 9, but I know what everyone said about him, which is kind of surreal for me, because
I imagine.
yeah, right. I
Yeah.
grew up wanting to be like the person that people told me about, not the person that I could physically see or experience. Maybe as a baby, for sure. I got to 9, right? And so a lot of my formative years were he was there.
That's challenging.
Yeah. But at the same time, it's kind of dope too, because then it makes you realize like you really can be whatever you want to be, right? I kind of emulated an ideal.
Yeah, a synthesized version of a person, and like in the best way possible.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And obviously my mom too. You know, my mom's still alive. Thank God. But yeah, it's really interesting to see like where all of our influences came from, and like how that continues to mold us to this day, and like offer us like relationships that are kind of like born from the same sort of like material from the ether, right? The same thing that allows us to accept each other is that same thing that brought us up. Wow. I actually didn't expect it to go to more heavy couple stuff, believe it or
Oh.
not. Like, because I didn't want to just like, oh, you guys are a couple, I'm just gonna add, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was such a joy to talk to you guys about your relationship, and especially the way that you talk about it is so refreshing and so heartfelt, and just it just makes me, it just like helps me to reflect on my own relationship as well, and to appreciate the things that I have there that are good, because I can see it in you guys.
Right
you
on.
know?
Oh, thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
I also think this is pretty good place to stop. I also noticed that juices are running out, but yeah, let's take a look. What is she saying?
Oh, I love this story so much. And he cooks me food all the time.
Trainer, not stationary bike.
Oh, trainer, sorry, not stationary bike. That's right, because it's
Are you
an
using your
actual
bicycle?
bike.
Yeah, I have the same thing.
Dope.
Turbo trainer. Like,
Yeah.
Thanks for
like-
tuning in, Jordan.
Yeah. And thanks again for your support, Jordan.
Oh, I do want to leave one piece of game.
Oh.
Something I've been doing really recently.
Please.
When you can, don't leave today's work for tomorrow.
Bet.
When you can.
When you can.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
You're just gonna cause yourself more trouble.
Yeah. That shit compounds.
Yeah.
Compound's the word of the day, and that's a bad compound.
That's a bad. We want the compound interest. That's a good compound. Yo, thank you. Is there anything else that you want to shout out?
I want to say thank you to you and Jen. I mean, seeing the two of you manage Baba's house the way that you two do is very inspiring. I mean, just to own a place like this, to have a shop and just bring in your friends and community and just create a community is so cool. You know, you guys really show that it's possible.
Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you.
All
And
right.
I mean this in the best way possible. Like, thank you for taking space. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's important.
Let's take up space.
Yeah.
You know,
I
By
think
the
they
way-
want us to. Too, you know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
they. Them.
Yeah.
who's they?
The
you know?
ancestors. At least, at the
Yeah.
very least, right?
Yeah.
Like Sunday, by the way, we're doing the block party. We're calling it a party
Yes.
market. We're gonna have a lot of fun out here. You know, our community is gonna be on the street, and we're gonna be taking up as much space as we can.
Yes.
Yes.
And just to see our community out here taking that space, eating our food, dancing our dance, listening to our music. I mean, like, not, you know, it's not all our music, but
I know.
but
what
the
you
music
mean.
we
Yes.
like.
Yes.
Right.
the music that that inspires us.
Mhm.
There's no better feeling. So
Yeah.
thanks for sharing it with me.
Yep. Anything coming up? Oh, I guess Amy will be having a display
Oh,
of
yeah.
sorts in San Jose for her 2-year anniversary for starting Motocot. So
What part of San Jose? That's my hometown.
So, oh wow. Okay, well, it will be at Japantown at Headliners. So, shout out to Mai if you're listening. Mai will be carrying my bags in his store at Headliners. And we're in the works of planning everything, but it will be July 1st from about 1 to 6.
Okay.
So I hope y'all can make it out and, you know, just celebrate this little baby of mine.
Yes. Let's go. What about you, brother?
In the realms that I mentioned here, what I got going on? That's not.
I've seen a lot of stuff coming from Tall T recently.
I guess I wasn't trying to talk about Tall T. It's like,
But that's all.
but yeah, I guess we got a Tall T album coming out, so we're also gonna have a new live video for you guys. We're recording it next week, so that'll be out in some time. Not a music video, but a live performance video. So
Dope.
that's coming out.
Okay, we'll keep that one on the low.